Hello everyone, welcome. I'm using my crappy camera for now because I'm going to be screen sharing because this is a review of my favorite type of testing, bioenergetic testing, along with blood work. Now, we all know that blood work is the most used and the most validated form of testing that we have. Even some of our super expensive functional testing are just not that validated and have actually shown to be given lots of different results with every test. And with blood work, we have decades and decades of proof that it is valid. However, blood is not where everything in our body resides. And if you've ever been sick or had any sort of chronic issue and you went to a doctor and they said, nope, your blood work is fine, and you didn't feel fine, you know that there's some missing pieces to blood work. So I use blood work in my practice for a variety of reasons. For one, because most people are not tested in advanced blood chemistry. So most doctors are not going to be looking at ranges, or even if they have smaller ranges, they may not know what some of those lab markers can show you. I have two different types of training in advanced blood chemistry, one in my master's degree in functional medicine and nutrition. And then I took another advanced mastering blood chemistry course that went even deeper. So I love looking at blood chemistry because it can tell you a lot, but there's a lot of missing pieces. So you may know I also love mineral testing as well, because that's another area. Our body corrects those mineral imbalances so quickly in the blood because it can be life-threatening. So, and then on top of that, bioenergetics is my favorite because bioenergetics give you the most answers, in my opinion. And as you can see by this review, it will match your blood work. So you do not have to worry about, is like what my labs say, is it going to be totally different than bioenergetics? I've literally never run into that issue before. They always match up and complement each other really well. So without further ado, let me share my screen. All right, so first we are here looking at the bioenergetic scan, and this is our energetic system performance. Now, the system performance is going to test all of the different organs and organ systems to show where the stress is in the body. And then right underneath here, we have the most significantly stressed, which for this person are the allergy points, which is going to be this immune system stress, as well as cellular metabolism, which is going to be this metabolism stress, and then lastly, the adrenal glands, which is going to be part of the endocrine system. Now, let's just start with allergy points. So with the immune system, so this person came to me first of all with mast cell symptoms. So they were having a lot of sensitivity problems. They were reacting to a lot of things, a lot of itching, histamine intolerance, and even like POTS symptoms, which sometimes can overlap mast cell. And so no surprise, this is the first most stressed system. Now, when I went through this as well, so I first dove into what causes imbalances in our immune system. So we have certain branches of the immune system, and I won't go into detail with all of them, but the main one here is going to be Th2. Th stands for T helper cell. And so this is a branch of the immune system with T helper cells, and this branch helps to address parasites, as well as is involved with mast cell degranulation and allergy symptoms. So what's going to drive a Th2 response? Parasites, right? Mold can also trigger this response because it is an allergen for a lot of people. And you can see in this person's environmental section that they did have mold resonating as an environmental sensitivity. And then if we go into the environmental toxins that resonated, you can see mold and parasites both resonated. And you can see here down at the bottom, this is not on your personal scan, but I give them to you when we do the consults. The molds that were resonating, the big one here I would say is the bovaricin, because this is a mycotoxin. And so this is what type of species of mold will off-gas and throw it into the air. And then we breathe it in, it lands on our skin, it goes into our lungs, our nose, our sinuses. And mycotoxins are what can make people sick, depending on the person's sensitivity, genetic background. Mycotoxins can also be an exposure in food, but this one is not a food mycotoxin. And this one can really impact our electrolytes, actually. And then we go into parasites. We've got two that are heavy duty gut stressors. Dientamoeba fragilis and anisakin larvae both can live in the intestinal wall lining. They're going to feed on your nutrients, especially iron, copper, and B12. And you can see here, this person's also resonating with low iron. Both of these actually can also drive up that histamine response and mast cell degranulation, food sensitivities, break down the gut lining, cause leaky gut, intestinal permeability. Anisakin larvae can also cause abdominal symptoms that are severe enough to mimic Crohn's disease. So it can be pretty impactful. And you can see that this person is also resonating with a lot of digestive system stress. Now I am going to share my other screen because we're going to jump over to labs. Now we are going to start with the WBCs. So this is our white blood cells. So I was mentioning Th2 branch. They will elicit or drive an eosinophil response, which is a type of white blood cells. So that's down here. And you can see this person had very high, so above a 3, I would consider high, and this is a 20. And so this is very high. This is something I personally dealt with as well. Mine went all the way up to 28. So this is going to really represent like high allergic reactions. These will correlate if you've ever had an IgG, IgE test done, which will show your allergic reactions to things. And so the higher this is, the higher your IgEs are going to be. And again, this is a big red flag for parasites if it is over 3, because they literally are sent out to kill parasites. And then the damaging effects of that is allergies, asthma, mast cell degranulation, which is exactly what this person's experiencing. Now the other blood cells, lymphocytes and monocytes, these are also involved in chronic infections, but not for parasites. So more so viral, bacterial. They can also be involved in autoimmune, injury, inflammation. Some medications can drive them up. Monocytes can also be elevated in the healing phase though. So it's not always a sign of chronic infection. However, when you compare it to white blood cells, they're at 4.2, so that's a little low, which I would be leaning more towards a chronic, some sort of chronic infection. Basically, if they're high, that's going to lean more towards an acute infection. Your body's trying to fight it off. And then if they start to get low, that means they're tuckering out. Now let's jump back into the scan. So I'm going to switch sharing again. All right, so next we're going to tackle cellular metabolism. Now, cellular metabolism is this circle right here, and this is how our body, our cells, our mitochondria are making energy. Now, this is a heavily mineral dependent process, as well as B vitamins, CoQ10, oxygen. And one of the most important, if not the most important nutrient for this process is iron. And you can see here that iron is one of the minerals that we're resonating as low. Now, when it comes to iron, either you could maybe not be eating enough. If you are eating enough, like if you're not vegetarian or vegan, if you have a lot of digestive system stress, like parasites in the gut, leaky gut, intestinal permeability, maybe you're not absorbing the iron. Maybe you are drinking a lot of coffee or black tea and you're blocking the absorption of iron. Maybe you don't have enough vitamin C or B12. Vitamin C helps with absorbing iron. The other big thing is parasites also use iron for their own metabolism. So do other types of life. So they will also use up your iron stored. And especially if the parasites are in the gut, there's perfect food right there. Then it never gets absorbed and you're low. And then what happens is you don't have enough oxygen because iron carries oxygen. So that can also impact your lungs. It can also impact your circulation. You can see the blood is also really stressed here because our iron is not there to carry oxygen throughout the blood. And so you may not be able to breathe as much. You may have air hunger, or maybe start to feel diagnosed, or maybe get diagnosed with asthma all of a sudden out of nowhere. Now you'll see, I love bioenergetics for this reason. One of the remedies that resonated, ginkgo, literally increases oxygen uptake. Look at that. And circulation. So bioenergetics always knows. So the other really important thing for cellular metabolism is other minerals, which none of the other ones that resonated here really stood out as huge for cellular metabolism, but they're all important. B vitamins are also really important. So we've got B5 resonating as low. And then let's move on to the adrenals. So the adrenal glands are involved in any type of stress response, whether that's physical, like you're training for CrossFit, whether that's emotional, like you're in a stressful relationship, or whether it's a chronic infection, your adrenals are going to elicit a stress response. Or if we don't have enough minerals, that's stressful for the body. The body's like, I need these raw nutrients to do this thing. And if I don't have them, I am stressed. So pump out more cortisol. Now, you can see that in the hormone section, we do the top 4. So it's not a complete picture, but you can really see that this person is stressed, and why the adrenals resonated as one of the most stressed areas, because all of these are related to our stress response. And DHEA, this also gets converted into testosterone. So if this is low, we're going to have more sex hormone imbalances, usually estrogen dominance, because high cortisol is toxic BFFs with estrogen. So cortisol and estrogen will be high together. They're also toxic BFFs with histamine. So estrogen, cortisol, histamine all love each other, and they just feel that inflammation cascade. So lowering your stress will also help your estrogen dominance, which will also help your histamine reactions. ACTH is involved in telling the adrenal to make cortisol. So it's technically a pituitary hormone, but if we don't need any more cortisol, guess what? We don't need ACTH to tell it to make more cortisol. Then we have aldosterone, which is another adrenal hormone, and this regulates our electrolytes. Like it's a really good picture of sodium, which is also going to impact potassium, because sodium and potassium, they make the sodium and potassium pump, which allows things inside and outside of the cell, which is critical for getting glucose in there, your hormones like your thyroid hormone. Sodium also is huge for like how much we're swelling. Low sodium also is going to impact our stomach acid production, which back to stomach acid, that also resonated as low. And then we'll take a look at the electrolytes on labs in a second. And then melatonin is literally opposite of cortisol. So they have an inverse relationship. Melatonin is low in the morning, cortisol is high, which we want. And then they kind of crisscross throughout the day. Cortisol is high at night. Cortisol is low at night. Melatonin is high at night. It's also a darkness hormone. And cortisol is a light hormone. So they're both very impacted by our light, which can also be a big stressor on the body. And I talk about this a lot. Cyclical living with the sun and the moon is critical for lowering your stress in your body. So let's go back and look at labs again. All right, so now we're going to look into the electrolytes. So potassium was actually okay. Sodium was actually okay. Calcium was a little bit low, and I could talk about calcium for like 2 hours, you guys. I'm not going to bore you on calcium. But when it comes to minerals and blood, the blood is not a good picture of what's going on with our minerals, because our body will correct these immediately, because we can literally die if we have too high or too low potassium, for example. With calcium being low, what I see most often in a stressed person is that calcium is being taken from the bones to stabilize the blood calcium, because we think of calcium as this nice, hard, strong mineral, because most of it needs to be in bones and teeth. And when we're going through something that's painful, psychologically, emotionally, physically, we're in pain, our brain is like, how can I be stronger? How can I not be in so much pain? And guess what? It thinks of calcium. It's literally a logical thing to use to make us harder, better, stronger, is to calcify us and to pull calcium from bones and teeth and start to deposit it in our tissues. So I'll usually see low blood calcium and higher tissue calcium when I do a hair tissue mineral analysis, which is another test. This person did not do one with me, but I have lots of videos on my Instagram if you want to look at that one. It's a super affordable test and looks at all of your different mineral statuses. But also with calcium, we can also think of so gut dysbiosis, like absorption with calcium, also kind of similar to iron, or really any nutrient. We have enough gut imbalances, low stomach acid, we're going to have a harder time absorbing nutrients. But typically I'll see more imbalances with calcium because of emotional stress and pulling calcium from bones and teeth. What was I going to say? Yeah, as like a stress response. Now, oh yeah, calcium is involved in literally every decision our nervous system makes. So most of it's in bones and teeth, yes, but calcium controls the nervous system. So when somebody's really stressed, our calcium will help make the body make the decision to release glutamate, which is very stimulatory, versus like oxytocin or GABA or something like that. So super fascinating. All right, let's go back to the scan. All right, so we are going to kind of peel back the layers of these last few things here that are stressed. So the lungs, this also goes hand in hand with that high eosinophils and the immune stress, because again, that trifecta of a Th2 dominance is asthma, allergies, eczema. So, and then we have circulation, which I mentioned was iron related. Low oxygen could also be mast cell related. Mast cell can impact our circulation. Stress can also impact our circulation. This is kind of cut off, but it says ear drainage. So we have ears, the entire lymphatic system, and sinuses that are stressing the lymph here. And this is a drainage pathway that also is part of our immune system. So sinuses and ears, I think of like mucus. Why would the body be creating mucus? Because it's determining that there's an intruder there. So that's its protective mechanism. Same with earwax, really. And then the whole lymphatic system, this is moving out toxicity, dead cells. Our lymphatic system is right underneath the skin. So if you ever get a lymphatic drainage massage, you're basically being pet because you don't need a lot to stimulate it. And then lastly, we have hypothalamus, which is also part of this endocrine system stress. And this is the H and the HPA axis. Hypothalamus is really important with determining if our body's in danger or not, because it's in the limbic system. And if we are, it's filtering our sensory data through everything we've ever been through and remembering every bad thing that's ever happened. And then it's saying, oh, we remember this room, or uh-oh, we remember this street. And it's going to go into the stress response, whether you consciously want to or not. It is doing it, working on your subconscious. Now, energetic sensitivities, we test for 450 different, so you can see everything tested right here. Like you can click on a category and see everything that was tested, which is way more comprehensive than like an IgG map. However, this cannot be considered a diagnosis. Bioenergetics also cannot make a discrepancy between a true allergy like IgE or sensitivity. However, that's never really been an issue for me. People usually know their allergy, their true allergies. And then some of the things that come up on here, maybe you don't even notice. Maybe it's your body's just generally inflamed, and that could be contributing, especially like some of these oils. And then as far as other clues, like when a lot of like fats or proteins or something like that show up, I also will look at the enzymes that it takes to digest them. So stomach acid, if that's low, you're going to have a harder time digesting almost anything. So that can contribute to a lot of the sensitivities as well as some of these nutritional imbalances. Glutamine is also a big indicator that the gut is really stressed. So is PABA. That's a big indicator the gut is really stressed. B5 is an indicator that the person is really stressed, because it's literally out of all the vitamins, like nature's anti-stress vitamin. You can also tell that they're dealing with some sort of blood sugar issues, because vanadium is resonating, and that is a huge blood sugar stabilizing mineral. Now let's go ahead and compare to the labs that they brought. And would you look at that? Glucose was high. High glucose could be related to any type of stress, also chronic infections, or just a poor diet, poor sleep, poor lifestyle, etc. And then you can see I highlighted HCl on a lot of factors, because a lot of these things can be impacted by low stomach acid. So like the calcium, the big one here, low protein, big one here would be globulin. When it's low, it's going to point towards leaky gut, low stomach acid, a lot of digestive system distress. And I think that's it for the gut. Yeah. But what else was I going to point out? Oh yeah, so since we already talked about iron, you can see iron on their labs, which usually I test for a lot more iron markers: TIBC, UIBC, iron saturation, ferritin, transferrin sometimes, because this gives you a much better picture of what's going on with iron. Iron is more complex than it's just low in the blood. And it can be high in the tissues. It can be missing cofactor that's needed to metabolize it. Iron is so important that our body has an iron recycling system, so that we never truly run out of iron, because we would die. But the iron is high in labs. So you're probably wondering, like, why is it low on the bioenergetics, but high in labs? And this is because iron needs to be metabolized. And if we do not have what it takes to metabolize it, then it's useless. We're not using it. It's building up in tissues and things like that. So when iron is too high in your blood, that can point towards liver stress. This person did not have liver stress. Poor conversion, iron overload. So we've got too much iron and it's not being used, basically. So when something shows up on bioenergetics, that means it's not being used properly. So our body may have enough, and this happens with quite a few nutrients. Copper is also like this. Calcium definitely is like this. We need to be able to use it for our cellular health. And as you can see, this person had a lot of stress in cellular metabolism. We know there's something missing there. Iron's not being used properly. A viral infection could also impact this. Heavy metals, they may need B12. It didn't come up on bioenergetics, but we only do the top 3 to 4. So B12 might also be low as well. Again, vitamin C helps us to absorb it, and that was low. So let's go back and look at the scan and see what the virus was that was coming up. So we went over mold and parasites already. Look at that. We've got Epstein-Barr virus resonating, which can be chronic in some people and relapsing when our immune system is not balanced, because this is an opportunistic virus. And so if our body is super stressed, we are going to present or have relapsing of things like herpes viruses, which Epstein-Barr falls in that category. Also, a plantar wart came up, but doesn't mean that you necessarily have plantar warts. So yeah, so everything pretty much matches perfectly. I don't think I missed anything. No, I didn't. I talked about everything. Actually, no, let's go back to labs one more time. I promise this is last, and then we'll look at the remedies. Like, what are we going to do about all this? So since we're talking about iron, hemoglobin was a little low, and this could point towards a nutrient need or an anemia of iron. You can have an anemia of other nutrients though. I'm also wondering if they're low in vitamin A and copper, because these are the two nutrients it takes to metabolize iron. So even though it didn't show up on bioenergetics, it is a big possibility. For this, I really love to do something like beef liver or another organ supplement like spleen. If somebody's really low in iron, however, it doesn't look like they're too low in iron, it just looks like they're not metabolizing it properly. So you need all of these cofactors or the GI inflammation. So let's go back to the scan one last time and let's look at the remedies. Now, when I do a consult, it usually takes about 60 to 90 minutes. If it's two labs, it's going to take the 90 minutes because we go through piece by piece every single thing. And then we also talk about other lifestyle and emotional factors that can contribute to this stress. So for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go into all of that stuff. I do have a podcast, which I love talking about this stuff. I've been a therapist for over 10 years, 13 years, I think at this point. But I've also been through my own shit and got super into like spiritual healing and things like German new medicine, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. But for the sake of this video, we're going to stick to the physical and bioenergetic testing. So Cellcore is a company that I absolutely love their products. They use a technology that no other company has that is allows the use of bioactive carbons. And so it's different because other companies, their carbons will be spent. So it's almost makes it like so much more able for the body to be used in this way. Biotoxin binder helps with mold, yeast, and biotoxins from parasites. So this person did resonate with ammonia as a sensitivity, which ammonia is a byproduct of our cellular metabolism and parasite metabolism. And so something like this binder can help binding to things like that, formaldehyde, ammonia. IFC is Cellcore's inflammation product, and it's really great for people dealing with mast cell symptoms and tons of allergies. Berberine is an herb that is fantastic for blood sugar stabilization, but in this formula, there are lots of other herbs that are great for balancing the gut microbiome, and they're antifungal. Green tea is in here, which is great as a polyphenol, which can also help with inflammation. It can help with testosterone metabolism, so it'll help in like sex hormone balancing. Then we have the ginkgo, which I already went over. Makes sense with that oxygen and iron being so low. But you can see there's also some pretty classic like adaptogenic herbs in here. Ashwagandha, passion flower, amazing for stress adaptation and anxiety. Then we have sambucus, which is going to help with a lot of these inflamed mucous membranes, like in the sinuses, in the gut, calm things down. But you can see this also has a lot of respiratory support, lymphatic drainage support, antiviral, antibacterial. We've got homeopathy that helps with retraining the immune system with some of those environmental sensitivities. So it's going to desensitize the body to some of those environmental sensitivities, which will help with the like allergy and mast cell type symptoms. This Inflamma Life Force, also amazing for inflammation. This one has serrapeptase in there, which is a systemic enzyme, which helps with breaking down fibrin, basically like scarring and inflammation in the body. And then lastly, we have Vita Life Force, which is a high antioxidant formula. You can see there's a lot of like fruits and powders and grasses. Broccoli sprout powder also will help with processing or the phase of the liver, which helps to process things like estrogen. And then we also have digestive enzymes in here to help support the gut. And then another binder, chlorella, chlorella helps with binding to things like metals and mold and some chemicals. a lot of liver support in here. Schisandra berry, beet juice, and beet juice also helps with like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like blood flow. And a lot of people will take it as like a pre-workout to help give them the energy and blood flow during their workout. So overall, not just lifestyle factors we're going to be addressing and diet, but these remedies are specifically tested for this person's height and weight and their stress levels, their priorities, and it's tested together to make sure it's also synergistically going to be beneficial. And it's not going to be too many supplements to be too stressful on the person. So all in all, you can see you can literally get all the information you need from Bioenergetics. And this is something I use with every single person. I say start with Bioenergetics. It's going to give us the most answers. We can compare it to whatever else you want, but Bioenergetics first. And if you found this helpful, or if you'd like to use Bioenergetics in your practice, send me a DM or go to my website, thehealerrevolution.com. And we have, me and some of my lovely colleagues have created a bioenergetic certification course so that you can read these tests like I just did. So you can make the connection, so you can understand how it compares to other labs, how you can understand how emotions impact and our nervous system health impacts all of these different areas. It's all in there. It's a beefy course, lifetime access, and a ton of done for you work that we have created so you can feel comfortable telling your clients what bioenergetics is, how it works, comparing it to other labs. And you can post on social media. Everything's already done for you. Edit it as you like. So I hope that's helpful. And then if you're a client, reach out to me if you want to use the testing on yourself. I do have an open practice. There's no wait list for this kinds of testing. So you can find me at thehealerrevolution.com and at Amanda Panacea. Bye.